and we are very happy to start our last and final class on David and Bathsheba, and the whole fascinating story. I think we need to hide these controls. Very good, perfect. We are concluding today after this is going to be our 8th lesson, and it's really it's been an experience for me also teaching this in English, but also to go and dive through the story of Bathsheba throughout the times. We started with the Bible. We're going now, we went through the stages, we're going throughout the different periods, and now we're seeing the representation of the story of David and Bathsheba in art. And last week we did Middle Ages art. We went through the 17th, 18th, 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, and now we are at our time, okay? Some of us were alive even then, some of us a little bit later, but here we are with Picasso, and it would be interesting to have your participation as well. Picasso has a few paintings of Bathsheba and David. This is a very interesting one where there is that reference for the letter. You see that in her right arm, and this is a typical Picasso. Anyone has something to add about it?
We don't have a David hiding in the corner here.
There's no David, right? Is there? Could someone locate David? Maybe behind the curtain?
It's very, very reminiscent of one of the earliest slides you showed a week ago.
Oh.
It's just very Picasso-esque.
Oh yeah, this is the classic Rembrandt picture, which is imitated by many, and Picasso as well, deliberately doing that. He knows everyone knows.
And the little frou-frous on the sides, very reminiscent of earliest depictions.
Yeah, very good. Right, that's exactly correct. Wait, we have a problem here with some of the people that are. You need to mute yourself, please. Okay, I muted it. Let's move on to the next Picasso, which is based on a painting by Lucas Cranach, the Elder, and this is like a medieval picture, a famous Bathsheba and David picture, where you see the classic, David playing on his violin, and his servants and consultants. And here's Bathsheba, and this is Picasso's take on the right side, which is also very interesting. And you see here David with a completely different, face and style. His consultants are not existent. They don't have a face. It's just him. And which represents, that he is, solely responsible. And actually, Bathsheba is also, it's not clear where she is. This could be Bathsheba, okay? But this figure here, which is also obstructed, could also be Bathsheba, right? She has legs, but we don't really see her, we don't see her face.
So there seems to be the same as the servant on the other, on the Cranach one. I mean, just looking at the position and how she's, crouched. And
oh, okay, very interesting. But then we don't see her face, do we?
No.
Her face is inside the skirt, just like here. So Picasso's making is a humoristic take even on that. Yeah?
Is this considered to be a painting? Because it looks like it's a no.
No, I think it's a complete painting. Okay, so now we're moving to Marc Chagall. Marc Chagall went to the land of his ancestors, which is Israel, and he did 77 works illustrating the text of the Old Testament. That's the Bible. And David and Bathsheba, he did many times. I wrote somewhere here, it was like 17 times or so. David, one of the favorite characters of Chagall, he devoted 15 paintings. On the canvas, David and Bathsheba, the viewer sees two faces, masculine and feminine, merged together, right? You see that? Yeah. The feminine and the masculine, as a symbol of the fusion of male and female principles, like the famous phrase about marriage, and there will be two and one flesh. However, on the canvas, Bathsheba turned away from the king. Apparently, she was sad about her murdered husband. The hand at the bottom of the canvas holds the harp. Obviously, this is a direct indication that David played the harp, and even according to the legend, is the author of several psalms. So you have here, I would go even further. It's really almost like the same person, and they're split. It's like David has this split. He's after the woman, but he's also a man of spirit. He has that obsession within him, and it's like all embodied within him. And even that, that beard here, which I would say is, maybe his dignified beard, but also represents here, a puberty here of the woman and the area of the vagina. And that's, again, his lust, his wantings. There are angels wandering here. And it really, I think, represents the inside soul maybe of David, the sinner, in many ways. Here's another Chagall from 1958. Ancient Jerusalem, just beautiful portraying of it. Here's another Chagall and Bathsheba, the moment that they meet. We see here the people of the palace behind. We see sort of like an intimate moment between them. And David is, maybe bashful, but he's very clear. It's not bashful in the sense that he's very clear. His hands are, all over her. She's not hugging him. It's almost like she's forced by his interpretation.
She appears to be dressed in that thing.
And she's dressed?
Dressed, yeah.
Well, this is when she's brought to the palace, right? Here's another one of David and Bathsheba. Actually, there are two more. I didn't bring all 17 paintings, but it could be just an interesting course just about Chagall and his paintings of Bathsheba. And here, this is fascinating. What is David doing here? Is this David? Is this maybe Uriah? Is this Uriah's soul floating here in the background? And David is sort of like dark and embracing white. Bathsheba, who's like an angel almost, right? She's like almost not human in the sense, but she has blood, right? There's blood here. This is like the blood of Uriah is maybe.
That supposed angel is bringing what looks to be a candelabra of some sort.
Okay, nice. And here is sort of like the palace, or maybe even the temple in the background. It's sort of like the destruction of the temple is a theme that I can identify here.
Well, the temple hadn't been built yet in David's.
Right, it hasn't been built, and maybe for a reason. Charles Mahoney, this is just a modern painting, which I found interesting. Gustav Adolphe Mossa. Look at the David's advisor here.
It's a character
with the letter. Talking to Bathsheba, here. I forgot the name of this, the style of this art.
It looks French.
Well, he-
Viennese.
Well, he
Viennese?
looks evil.
He looks
David
evil.
looks evil.
Yeah.
I don't think this is David. I think this is the. You think this is David?
Well, it says that
No.
you have David and Bathsheba.
Oh, okay. So maybe it is. Yeah. So David seems like this evil old man. If that's him.
She looks horrified.
She looks horrified because he, I think the artist here was appalled by the story. Rubin, a very famous Israeli painter, David and Bathsheba. Here's David. And is this the hand of Bathsheba, or is this the hand of the maid, or is this the hand of Uriah? It's not very clear, but she seems like an innocent girl bathing, which is also very interesting. This was a beautiful picture, I thought, by Marie Asher, 1963. It's in the American Art Museum. But note how David swallows Bathsheba. Okay, you see like this is David's beard here, all over Bathsheba. His beard is like all over surrounding the bench.
Really?
His eyes are raised above her arms. You see his eyes here? This is like a monster sort of like taking over this human being.
Oh.
Very powerful painting. Very, very powerful painting. Shmuel Bonet, 1974, Israeli artist. Just a very pretty painting. A statue of Bathsheba by American sculptor Benjamin Victor. Has anyone ever heard of this American sculpture? And this is, Bathsheba as the sultry seductress.
It's a beautiful sculpture.
Beautiful sculpture.
Is that one sculpture or is it just?
I think it's one sculpture.
Showing the front
Yeah.
and the back.
I think so. That's a good question. That's how I found it on the internet.
Do we know how big it
Locale for
was?
that
No, I don't know. Why?
Where is it?
Do we know where it's standing?
No. I need to find out more information about that. But you can look up Benjamin Victor. Okay, I tried, to Michal Baratz Koren Bathsheba. She stages women in different biblical stories, and this is a very interesting one, right? We see this is actually a photo, modern photo, and we see all the workers, the Bathsheba, and how she's groomed by everyone, and she's sort of like looking to her destiny. Modern Bathsheba. Okay, this is Rembrandt with the letter, and she's smoking. Okay, right. She's reading, and what is she? She's sort of like thinking, "Oh, okay, this is like cool. This is like modern life today. I can do whatever I want." Right? She's like, "Oh, I could go with the king. I could stay with my husband." It's sort of like that modern woman take, maybe like a feminist take in many senses. And it's like with a puff of air, like she can make that decision. I thought it's a very nice one. Right. Okay, this is very interesting by Sheva. He has a series. I brought a few of because he saw a woman washing herself. So over the top of the roof, David was on the top of the roof. So here it is over Ein Karim in Jerusalem, where Hadassah Ein Karim is. So this is the neighborhood. So he painted her here with that scenery. And then he goes again and he does it in New York City. Okay. So the same, and there's a series that he has of King David with Bathsheba overlooking different cities around the world. So so he brings in Bathsheba into each of these cities. It would be, for lack of time, I'm not going to analyze each one, but it's just beautiful. 1995, Fuchs Ernst, David and Bathsheba, very powerful picture of lust. Bathsheba is black, and David is much stronger and powerful, and there's like no space for her. But still, she's a queen, and she has, everything that David wants and lusts for is in that picture. And look at their hands, right? His hand is like this. Her hand is maybe praying to God, like, save me from this. And his hand is like about to grab her. You see the different hands?
Look how long her.
Right,
Look at the fingernails.
Yeah.
These are her fingernails.
Yeah.
Look at how dark his are.
His are dark, and his have maybe even blood on them. And he's just, his lust is like, what a painting. And she is like, God, like, save me, maybe something like that. It's not really clear. Theodore Tobias, and his big painting is Who Seduced Whom? And the interpretation I read online on this is that Bathsheba is an exuberant and willing participant in the adulterous affair, according to him. And this interpretation is made all the more clear in the way Bathsheba very directly offers up her breast, okay, here. But more telling is Tobias' inclusion of a target with an arrow on the bull's eye placed on King David's head, okay? Sort of, this is like where she's aiming at. So according to this interpretation, Bathsheba tempted David. An Ukrainian painting from 2011 with a very nice modern interpretation. And David is going like this, shh, okay? Don't tell anyone. Like shushing her, right? Anelia Pavlova, also known as NL, is a Bulgarian-born Australian artist, and this is from South Australia. A lot of very interesting representation. David is almost like, looks like Jesus, right? David, according to the Christians, David is the forefather of Jesus. Jesus comes out from that lineage. And Bathsheba is just so pure and innocent, like the most beautiful and pure thing on earth. And there's not much sin going on here, okay? There is some midrash. Here's the bird, right, that tempted, that sort of like started the whole issue. So there are very interesting motifs here as well. David and Bathsheba, an Israeli art, Russian Israeli artist, Jana Shulroper. Here's one very interesting modern one I found out. Terry Moore Strickland, and he writes about this painting. This was a commission where I had great leeway in the telling. I decided to focus on their relationship as one of the greatest love stories of all time, to focus on empowering Bathsheba. So he is serving her by polishing her toenails. Okay, David is polishing Bathsheba's toenails. So that was hilarious. The models were my daughter and son-in-law, who were newlyweds at the time. He didn't mind at all. In a way, it is a retelling of the story, my searching for a truth that is written between the lines of the Bible story. So I don't know if it's the truth of the Bible line stories, but I just found it like fascinating, that people like in today's world still are obsessed with the story and are able to give such interesting interpretation. Even I don't think it's the right interpretation, but
Is that a painting or was it a photograph?
it's a stage photograph, I think.
Is that?
Oh no, you're right.
Looks like
Maybe
a
it is a
painting.
painting.
That's a.
Yeah, maybe it is a painting.
Painting on a photograph.
I could not find the name of this artist, but this is sort of like, the artist is called David, but it wasn't clear to me what his name was. And this is like, the pose is like in the Rembrandt tailing, and there is sort of like David looking at Bathsheba as he's painting her. So it's an interesting take on that story, trying to understand what exactly it means, but it's like a modern David artist. painting Bathsheba. Here's just on wood, so it's not just on canvas. Okay, here are a lot of motifs that we talked about with David and Bathsheba and the way he's lusting for her. Maybe this is David. Here's that bird again. Here's the destructive kingdom of David and all the ruins that happen from there on. And Bathsheba, her hand is sort of like on what I think, I don't know, maybe almost looks like, part of the temple or maybe even the Dome of the Rock. And these are like the gates of Jerusalem, like the entire Jerusalem is set in this scene and is destructed as a follow-up to this story. Here's a sketch, an art sketch by Herbert Sim, is a philanthropist, entrepreneur, investor, and digital illustrator and writer. He's the Bitcoin man. I don't know who invented Bitcoin, but they say maybe he did. But he's also an artist. So this is his sketch of David and Bathsheba, this powerful, strong man, bold, looking at, the beautiful Bathsheba, which is just like a few drawings that could be easily erased also. Bathsheba gets a text message, okay, painting. And this is what Michael Galizzi writes: I wanted to do an updated version of the biblical story of David and Bathsheba. Inspired by Rembrandt's painting of the same event, Bathsheba has just received a message from David just after seeing her bathing and is propositioning her. In this version, she receives the message on her cell phone, and I included on the table a copy of Rembrandt's painting of David looking at her. Okay, so here's Rembrandt's painting over here, and here's the dog. Okay, the dog, but it is a red chair, okay, which is also very interesting. I think that sort of represents, Bathsheba being, in her period time and bathing and all that, and she looks very distracted after reading this text message. So it's sort of a very sad moment. Okay, tried to leave politics out, but I couldn't avoid, the fact that even the Palestinians take the story of David and Bathsheba and portray themselves, like with David and Goliath. The Palestinians say that they are David, and the Israeli army is like the Goliath and all that stuff that they say. So here, I couldn't believe it, but it's even in this painting here. Okay, La Soberabia, I don't know who that artist is calling this painting David's Pride. And David's Pride is a symbolic work depicting the unwitting Bathsheba cleansing behind a swaying curtain resembling the Palestinian flag. Carved at the bottom of the column, the word Palestine in Arabic, and a key, the right to return. And the viewer, which is us, just as complicit, sitting back, contemplating her nakedness. So we're like, in his eyes, okay, like the viewers are sort of like David and are like allowing this, sort of to happen. And you see the body of Sheva is really, beaten up, from all, and obviously we understand what the artist is trying to tell us. I personally do not agree with the views here, but I just thought it's interesting to see the representation of this in the art. Here's another interesting photo. There are books called Bathsheba that are out today. Here's another painting, David and Bathsheba.
That face on David looks exactly like the sculpted David, the Michelangelo David.
So interesting. And one of them is Bathsheba, right? So this would be David and this would be Bathsheba. So they alternated, you mean? Or they,
No,
this
face reminds me
one.
of the sculpture that's in Florence.
Okay.
She looks like Angela too, for some reason.
Like?
The shop girl. the face with the curls.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry.
Great, nice.
That's weird.
Yeah, this is also very modern, artistic, postmodern even interpretation of powerful Bathsheba here, displaying all that she has. And here's old David, just like,
It took me a while to
Being-
find David
yeah,
there.
yeah, here's David buried with all of these,
Does he look
cloth.
like an ape? I can't really.
Like an ape. He looks like an old man.
I mean, I can't really, maybe I don't see it well.
Here's another very interesting painting. Here's David. It's not very clear who is this. Okay, here's
Someone
Bathsheba.
playing music, maybe to.
Someone playing
entertain.
music. This is maybe David playing music,
Yeah.
and this is maybe a different David.
No, his head is turned, it's got like a long neck and his head is turned.
Oh, his head is out.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so what does that represent? And here's like a pomegranate tree representing that old sin. And we have all these birds. Another beautiful painting, Joan Keaton. John. Oh, sorry, John, you're right. And here,
Yeah, she looks like
She
a-
looks masculine here.
looks masculine. That's what I was about to say, which is also very interesting. It's sort of maybe, like a post-gender interpretation of the painting.
Yeah, because the hair, the hair was long, his hair was short.
This hair is short, right. So it's like, it's all the opposite.
Yeah, and the musculature is very
Look at all
masculine.
Very
the
much
hair.
so.
Maybe it's really David.
Maybe it is David bathing. Okay, that's interesting. But maybe the artist wants to tell us, just like the Palestinian artists were trying to tell us, sort of like Bathsheba is like the one who's like abused, like the Palestinian people. So maybe this artist is also trying to tell us, maybe a transgender people or like Bathsheba. Like there could be different interpretations to these things. I just thought it's interesting to look at different takes. I'm not bringing any specific view here. It's just like to see how the art is reflected. My goal is really to show how the David and Sheva story is alive. I actually watched a movie the other day. You're so not invited to my bat mitzvah. Did you see that?
Not yet.
And there are few references there to the David and Bathsheba story. So watch it just for those parts. Okay, they're talking about David and Bathsheba. It's like this boy and a girl, and they steal. One of the girls steals the boyfriend, so she's like, "Oh, you're just like David and Bathsheba." So it's like it's fascinating. There's a rabbi there that explains the. It's a weird movie, but then here just another. I don't know what to even say, but just very, very postmodern German painter, Marina Rossmann.
She's
She's like a baby almost, right? She's like a little child, right?
It's a cartoon.
It's a cartoon, right? Here's at the beach, okay? Bathsheba is at the beach bathing, right? She's bathing, so that also counts as bathing.
They might live in Malibu.
Maybe in Malibu, that would be
Oh,
funny,
I
right?
see that.
David and the bath painting, okay? And this is very horrific, right? We have here David with his, terrible mind and all the thoughts inside and what he's going through. And here we have Bathsheba. She's almost like in a coffin, right? I mean, she's bathing, but she's almost in a coffin. It almost looks like she's holding the baby, maybe. That's the baby. And I don't know what these checkers mean here either. It's like black and white.
It's a bathroom floor.
The tile floor. Okay.
Some of these might say more about the artist than it tells us about David and.
No, I know. It's not, it's an interpretation. That's what it is. Nachum and Levi, I think my mother referred me to him, has like a series of like 3 huge paintings of David's life. This is the first I didn't bring. This is the second, but here's the third one.
Wow.
With all these symbols. We have here King David, okay? And we have here Bathsheba, but she's holding the arm of David, but her other arm is comforting Uriah. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
And here's the baby who's about to die.
Who's the other woman?
This might be, from
The servant?
no, when they was really old. Yeah, the servant. What was her name? Forgot her name. From the one that comforts him when he's old. A mixed media painting. This is like a very up to date with newspapers, and it's just like and King David here in the background.
Avishag.
Right, Avishag Hashunamit. Bathsheba is a belly dancer. Okay, interesting, from 2015 by Nora Swallows. There's a soap opera, apparently. Bathsheba, a woman that uses her perfectly curated social media account as a facade to mask the abuse taking place in her home. So it's a series of,
Weird.
yeah, weird. Right, yeah, I know. It's not all of them. I don't say go and run and watch all these. It's just interesting to see. This is the movie. Has anyone watched the movie David and Bathsheba with Gregory Peck?
50 years ago.
Okay, and Susan Hayward. And there's a very famous line there where she goes, "If the law of Moses is to be broken, David, let us break it in full understanding of what we want from each other." And then they
She's
go to
talking
bed.
about the 10 Commandments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, but that makes her complicit.
Right, but that's how who's the director? I don't know who the director is. That's what he decided, or the playwright decided to put her in that situation. A book, Bathsheba Survives, an interesting book. This is Leonard Cohen, right? We had that, right? Your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof, and her beauty and the moonlight overthrew her. She tied you to a kitchen chair. She broke your throne and she cut your hair, and from your lips she drew the hallelujah. So this is Bathsheba is sort of like the one who's tempting David, according to Leonard Cohen, which is interesting because some say that he wrote this song after someone he was very much in love with in Greece left him. There was like a whole affair he had there, and she left him, and then they say maybe he wrote that because of her. There is a ballet, David and Bathsheba, okay, which is also very interesting. And now there's all this modern talk about David raped Bathsheba and why that matters. And it was interesting. Again, I'm not saying that I agree, but there was like a whole, day dedicated somewhere. I think even in a Christian church about clergy sexual abuse and abusive survival. Rachel Den Honlander, and she was having a discussion in Southern Baptist Convention and addressing the issue of sexual abuse. And the topic was, like clergy abusing their power. So David also doing that in a way. So it's very interesting that I find it very interesting that again, the motif is studied again and again, and it's used again and again. Did David rape Bathsheba? Why leaving room for a power rape interpretation matters? So again, it's I think in today's world, it's very important that, when people of power abuse their power. So again, it's a problem, and it's a well-known issue that needs to be addressed. The question is this like the right way to use David and Bathsheba's story? I'm not sure about that, but I think it's very interesting that we see it again. Here is something interesting. I'm moving now away from the paintings and into the Quran and the way the Quran looks at the story. And this is from this 38th chapter, Surat Sa'ad. And it talks about David. Have you heard the news of the disputing parties who climbed the walls of the prayer room and entered where David was praying? He was frightened. So they said, do not be afraid. We are only two disputing parties, of which one of us has transgressed against the other. Judge between us with truth and justice and guide us through the right path. So this is part of the story where Nathan, the prophet, brings this story in front of David, and now David has to judge in that story. And then it goes, one of them said, this is my brother, who has 99 ewes, when I have only one. He has demanded me to place that one in his custody. He had the stronger argument. David said, he has certainly been unjust in demanding your ewe from you. Most partners transgress against each other, except for the righteously striving believers, who are very few. And David realized that it was a test from us as the angels, or from us in heavens. So he asked forgiveness from his Lord and knelt down before him in repentance. We forgave him for this. In our eyes, he certainly has a good position and the best share of the world to come. We told him, David, we have appointed you as our deputy on earth, so judge among the people with truth. Do not follow worldly desires, lest you go astray from the way of God. Those who go astray from the way of God will suffer severe torment for forgetting the day of reckoning. So this is a complete different version of the story. There's no Uriah, there's no Bathsheba, there's no sinning, there's no sleeping with her, there's no killing Uriah. The whole lust of David, it's all censored in the Quran. It's like it doesn't exist.
This seems like they're telling it from Samuel's point of view. I'm sorry, was it Natan's point of view?
Yeah.
When he comes and gives him that parable of the poor man and the rich man.
Right. They only focus on that part.
Right.
And
I don't know. Do we know if a previous verse had said anything about what happened before then? I'm hardly.
No. This is it, and this is. I saw this book, David in the Muslim Tradition, the Bathsheba Affair, an entire book that talks about in chapter 38, 21 to 25, which is what we read. The Quran relates a very short narrative about the biblical King David seeking and receiving God's forgiveness. The earliest Muslim exegetes interpreted Quranic verses as referring to the Hebrew Bible story of David's adultery with Bathsheba as related in Samuel 12, 1 to 13. Later Muslims, however, having developed the concept of prophetic impeccability, radically reinterpreted those verses to show David as innocent of any wrongdoing, since in the Muslim tradition, he's not only a king, but a prophet as well. So this book, David in the Muslim Tradition, the Bathsheba Affair, outlines the approach of the Quran to shared scriptures and provides a detailed look at the development of the exegetical tradition and the factors that influence such exegesis.
That's interesting. To me, that suggests that the general population would have been aware of the story of David and Bathsheba, sort of taking that as a given and then going on to.
But not if you only read the Quran. If you only read the Quran, which is, if you're a good Muslim, so you're
I'm
supposed.
saying there may have been just a general knowledge of that story in the popular culture.
Right, so they look at the Bible sometimes as not saying everything in the right way.
Right.
That's why you need the Quran.
Right.
Quran is telling you the right way it really was. Okay, the Bible is like, got it, parts of it are right.
Right.
David is a prophet, that's for sure. But they got, just disregard what the Bible says about all this other stuff. And now we're explaining to you like what really happened. Right, and this goes down to, very often, like when, and I have some, some Muslim friends who also acknowledge that, some of the traditional Islamic traditions are not able to deal with the fact, that there is sin and temptation and that lust within the leaders. They want to sort of like perfect them and have them flawless, but it's not possible, as we know.
The idea that a prophet is perfect doesn't exist. We have the whole tale of Jonah.
Right.
He's a prophet.
And he wasn't perfect, right? They don't want to handle that. And here is our Christian.
The rabbinic tradition also says you can't blame David.
Well, we saw last week that there's some minority, traditions. Today, most ultra Orthodox would say what you're saying, that you can't blame. David is flawless, but in the Talmud and most commentaries definitely see David's fault and sins. So I think in Judaism there's a much more critical approach.
Maybe I wonder if the Muslims are afraid that if a prophet can have sin, that would imply that Muhammad could have sin, which they won't accept.
We won't
He's
accept
always
that
referred to
either.
as the prophet.
Yeah, you can't say one wrong word because or else you're risking your life to do that. So in Matthew chapter 1, okay, it says the book of the generation of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham begat Isaac, and Isaac begat Jacob, and Jacob begat Judas and his brethren. So we don't care about all his other brothers, we care about just Judah, okay? And Judah begat Phares and Zarah of Thamar, and Phares begat Esrom, and Esrom begat Aram, and Aram begat Aminadab, and Aminadab begat Nachshon, and Nachshon begat Salmon, and Salmon begat Boaz of Rachav, and Boaz begat Obed of Ruth, okay? And Obed begat Jesse, that's Ishai, the father of David. And Jesse begat David the king, and David the king begat Solomon, of her that had been the wife of Uriah. So it's interesting.
Her name's not mentioned, she's just the wife of.
Right, just the wife of, and she's like taken out of this story. It only lists the male. Okay.
Except for Ruth.
They
never mentioned the mother.
Right, which is right. It's like how much could they disregard the biblical story? But okay, so at least they have Ruth. And then a few verses later, it says, so all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations, and from David until the carrying away into the Babylonian, the exile, and 14 generations. From the carrying away into Babylonian unto Christ are 14 generations. So they're like 28 generations between that and getting to Jesus. So it's very interesting. David is like a central focal point of where it all starts from. And I just brought here from the book of Ruth, from our Bible. So this is sort of like the lineage of Perez. Perez was the father of Hezron, and okay, that's Esrom here. Okay, and Hezron is the father of Ram, which is Aram. Ram, the father of Aminadab. Aminadab, the father of Nachshon, the father of Salmon, some say Salma, and Salmon, the father of Boaz, Boaz, the father of Obed, and Obed, the father of Jesse, and Jesse, the father of David. So this is like the lineage according to the Bible.
Does it tell you who the mother is of David? It just tells you the paternal lineage?
No, she's not mentioned. The Bible doesn't mention her. Another interesting representation in modern today was in Black Lives Matter. I was even very interested to find here, biblical scholar, seminary professor, Episcopal priest, who says David sent emissaries to kidnap Sheva, which is very interesting take on the Bible, and she came to him and then he raped her. So it's like there's no will at all. Like Sheva didn't even, there's no letter. They came, they kidnapped her, they brought her and raped. Very.
Where do they come up with that? There's nothing there.
Okay, and then she cleansed herself of her defilement and returned to her house. Which is, again, that's not the story in the biblical story. She does that before. After some time, the woman conceived, and she sent and told David, I am pregnant. Okay, this is very different than the biblical story, but it's interesting that there is that take. Again, right. Okay, there are other, so now that we sort of like finished with David and Bathsheba paintings, there were other paintings that were interesting of King David giving Uriah a letter, right? Because the Bible says that he gives him a letter, and that letter has his death sentence, right? So there's no letter that David's giving Bathsheba, but there is a letter that Uriah is getting. Maybe that letter sort of like was switched between the artists, but here's that letter that Uriah is getting. Who is Uriah here? And who is the other person? Maybe that's the apprentice of Uriah. But here he is, this innocent man, and David is like, go out to the wilderness, go out to your death. Very scary painting. Here is another painting where Bathsheba and her servants are here, and Uriah is on a horse about to leave, and here is the king, where his army is leaving. The king is watching Bathsheba. He's not watching over his army. That was like a fascinating painting. And here's another one, David handing over the letter to Uriah and sending him off. Here's the scribe. The scribe knows what's in the letter. The scribe is maybe trying to hint to Uriah, run for your life or something. But Uriah is seems like this honest, unloyal warrior, and both David and the scribe look very complicit.
Even though David sends Uriah to the front, there really was no guarantee that he would be killed.
No, but the instructions were to send him right to the
I mean, I understand, but
Yoav made it happen, and obviously, here's another interpretation of handing the letter, this is another interesting. Okay, this is Ivan Schwebel, 1983. Here's in a French city, they're over like a glass of wine, these two artists, and one of them is David, and the other is, Uriah. He's like telling him, he's like handing him over maybe a letter and sort of like talking him to go to his death. Bathsheba mourns for her husband by James Tissot. James Tissot is an artist of many paintings of his are in the Jewish Museum in New York. Have you ever been there? Look at this painful painting. Shelley Kravchenko, this says Uriah, and here's Bathsheba, this lonely Bathsheba in this forest with all these thorns, these trees and these thorns around. And it doesn't say his name, it doesn't say anything, it just says Uriah. Very, very powerful. Here's a painting I even found of Rembrandt of Nathan coming to King David and proving him wrong. Here's another one. David sort of like has a hand in saying, I have sinned. Here's another one. David is even upset. It's very old and upset by the prophet Natan. And again, the prophet, here's Uriah laying dead, and here's the sheep, and David, who's repenting, I guess. That thou shalt not commit adultery, statue or plaque. Here's again, Nathan, the prophet, denounces the sin of David. And here's Bathsheba crying over the death of Uriah. Very powerful image. And the child produced from David's rape while he prays for the child is here as well. Here David promises to Bathsheba that her son Solomon, the son who comes after the dead son, will be the king after. And then I just wanted to conclude with some representation of this art. We won't see all of this, but I just want to make sure we share the sound here. Share sound.
ויען המלך דוד ויאמר קראו לי לבת שבע ותבוא לפני המלך ותעמוד לפני המלך.
That's really good.
Yeah, I'm not a dance expert, but it's very powerful. And you saw that that bath in the background all the time. Very, beautiful.
They do it with flamenco music.
Yeah, very powerful. Here is a very famous Israeli. Okay, this is one of these other comedy. Let's see, it's like it's 1 minute. Okay, she says, I was married to Uriah.
אתה קולט איזה בזבוז פרח כזה נשואה לחיתי?
Do you see how, what a shame that such a beautiful girl was married to, someone who was like that? And she says, well, I married because all my other girls were already married.
התחתנתי כי כל החברות שלי כבר היו נשואות, וכי הרגשתי את השעון הביולוגי שלי, בכל זאת אני הייתי...
And, I was 14 and all my other friends were already married and I wanted to have, babies.
ואז יום אחד ראיתי אותה עולה להתקלח על הגג.
One day I went and I saw her bathing on the roof.
ואיך שהתפשטה, הרגשתי שיש בינינו קליק.
And the moment she took off her clothes, I felt there's a click between us.
אני חשבתי שהוא סתם איזה סוטה ג'ינג'י.
Thought he's like a redhead pervert.
אצלה הקליק הגיע קצת יותר מאוחר.
כששמעתי שהוא הוד מלכותו, הסוטה הג'ינג'י.
היה לנו לילה מדהים.
When I heard that this redheaded pervert is the king, so then he said, we had a wonderful night.
למחרת הבנתי שאני לא יכול לחיות בלעדיה.
After I realized I can't live without her,
ואני ידעתי שאם אני אהיה מלכה זה מה זה יסתום את הפה לכל החברות שלי.
that if I would be the queen, that all my girlfriends will shut up. Okay, and then he says, and then I sent Uriah to a suicide mission in the forefront.
הלכתי את אוריה למשימת התאבדות בחזית.
וזהו, בעצם מאז אתה, מה? אתה שלחת אותו למות?
So she's now upset. She's like, what? You did what? You sent him to die?
ברור. ואז התחתנו בטקס מנקר עיניים.
רגע.
Because of course I did. And then we got married in this beautiful ceremony.
רגע, אתה אשכרה שלחת אותו למשימה שידעת שהוא ימות בה רק בשביל להיות איתי? זה אומר שאני נשוא...
So she says, you actually sent someone to his death just so you could be married to me? You killed someone for that? I'm married to a murderer? So he says, yeah, but your girlfriends are envy of you, right?
החברות שלך מקנות בך?
Something from Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, but very, very powerful because, it really shows how sad this is, right? Through this crazy humor. What else was there? Oh, this I think he's sending him to his death here. Jerusalem, 10th century before.
אוקיי. אדוני המלך, אתה מוכן?
נולדתי מוכן.
Me, King David, I was born ready.
3, 2, 1.
טוב, די, מספיק להיום. החוצה.
Going out.
טוב, לעניין. אני מניח שרובכם מנחשים למה אתם פה. אתם נבחרתם בפינצטה כדי להילחם בקרב נגד בני עמון.
You probably can imagine all of you why you're here. They're all fighters. I want you to fight against, the Ammonites.
נבחרתם כי אתם הלוחמים הכי אמיצים והכי מפחידים בצבא דוד המלך.
Chosen because you're the scariest or the most fearful fighters in the army of King David.
גדי הבזנת, אתה קראת את הראש למלך יבוס עם השיניים.
Gadi, you took off the King Yevus head with your teeth off.
אבינדב הקילר, אתה חנקת למוות 20 גרגשים ביד אחת.
Abinadav, you're the killer and you killed 20 of our enemies with one hand.
אבי הגורילה, אתה רצחת 360 פלישתים עם נבוט.
Avi, the gorilla, you killed 360 Philistines with one,
ואוריה החיתי, מלך בהקלדה עיוורת.
And Uriah, who's like this actor who's like a lame person, you are the king in blind typing. Like how do you say?
Braille?
No. When the secretary, touch typing.
היי כולם. דוד, אני חושב שנפלה פה טעות.
שאלות בסוף.
I think there's a mistake. I'm not supposed to be here, so David's like questions at the end, not now.
חברים, מחר אתם יוצאים למלחמה. זה לא יהיה קל, זה לא יהיה כיף, ויש מצב שחלקכם לא יחזרו ממנה.
זהו.
So tomorrow you're going to war. It's going to be a very hard war. Some of you will not come back, and he's pointing out to Uriah, and Uriah is saying, "This is exactly what I want."
בדיוק על זה רציתי לדבר איתך.
אבל אל דאגה, בתור המלך שלכם והמפקד העליון שלכם, הכנתי לכם תוכנית קרב ברורה ומסודרת.
Don't worry, as your chief commander, I made a very good war plan for you.
שאם תעקבו אחריה, הכל יהיה בסדר.
If you follow it, everything will be fine.
לרובכם.
For most of you, it will be okay.
לכל הנ"צדיקים נתתי שמות עבריים כדי שיהיה לכם קל לזכור.
The point of where you're supposed to attack, I gave a Hebrew name, so it will be easy for you to remember.
שבט גדי, אתם אמורים לכבוש את שתי הגבעות האלה.
איך אני קורא?
So, the Gadi team, you're supposed to take these two hills. How are they called?
ישבני בת שבע.
לאשתי.
They are called the bottoms of Batsheva. Okay? And he's like, oh, my wife is...
מי קוראים בת שבע?
ברצינות, לא רננה. צוות אבינדב, אתם מתחילים כאן למטה, ובסוף כולם גומרים כאן על שדי בת שבע. ברור?
You here, you take over this hill, which is the breast of Batsheva.
יאללה, שיהיה לכם בהצלחה, לרובכם.
רגע, דוד, שנייה, אני חייב להגיד לך משהו. אני בכלל לא אמור להיות פה. אני נפלתי במיונים בשלישות, יש לי מלא פטורים על אלרגיות, אני מקיא בשמש. איך אני יכול להיות מפקד במלחמה? אני שיאן הגימלים של שבט זבולון.
טוב, שהיא...
Always have like sick leave from the army. So he says, oh, it's a good thing you remind me of that.
הזכרת לי. חבר'ה, נקודת האיסוף שלכם בסוף היא כאן. למקום הזה קוראים...
תן לי לנחש, משהו עם בת שבע.
So, this is where the place where you all round up together after the war is called, and Uriah says, oh, let me guess, it's probably called something with Batsheva. So David says, no, this is called
קבר אוריה החיתי.
We are. This was like, it's like a series of the Jews are coming. It's like,
Was on TV then?
yeah, it's on Israeli TV. Yeah. Okay, and there was even a very famous Israeli song which was called Uriah.
רק אני רציתי אותו.
Song. So with that, we conclude our series, and I want to thank everyone for participating with your great comments. And next week we have a new series starting 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's get ready for 5, 7, 8, 4. Rosh Hashanah, main themes and customs is our lesson. Next time we're going to try to explore where does the holiday of Rosh Hashanah come from. There's no mentioning of Rosh Hashanah in the Bible, which is interesting, but it is considered a biblical holiday. And we're going to talk about the different customs, how was it celebrated in ancient times, how it's celebrated today, how do we get to the point that we spend hours and hours in the synagogue, and the different customs that we have in the around the table with honey, and the customs of other religions. I mean, not other religions, other, not just the Ashkenazi customs, the Sephardi customs, and what they do. So we'll have an interesting thing. And if anyone has something special for Rosh Hashanah that they do at their home or used to do at their home of their parents, please bring it as well.